All right. So this is the work meeting on Virgin Town Council work meeting on Thursday, May 11th at 6 p.m. So, the first four items are all things that we continued from the last town council meeting. And I figured we would just talk about them again before we, so we know where we're going when we get to the town council meeting next week. Thank you. Okay, so I continued these in the same order they had. I looked at the agenda from the last town council meeting, and I kind of continued these in the same order that they had been on the agenda for the April town council meeting. So the first thing we had talked about at the April town council meeting was the budget. So you guys continued it for another month to the May meeting. That was the motion that you guys had as a town council meeting in April, was to continue it to the May meeting. And so I figured we'd talk about the budget before we have our meeting in May. And other than you proposed suggesting that we add a stipend for our capital improvements committee members, you suggested $50 a month for the members. Other than that, you guys discussed it a little bit during the meeting. I was listening online, but I didn't participate very much. And I heard what you said, Paul, Jean, about you were concerned that if we did this, then we would have to then turn around and pay the members of the development review committee. But
it was more just when you start creating committees and you start paying every committee, and pretty soon you've got this whole bunch of committees that are supposed to be volunteer position.
Okay. So
that's a legitimate concern. I think when I look at the capital improvement committee, it's the work that they've been doing. Yeah, I mean, they've been doing a lot of work, and I don't know what that threshold is when you pay somebody, but it's not like somebody coming in and volunteering to do a job that's once, maybe twice. This is quite a bit of work that they've been going through. And it could be $25, it could be $50, but I think at some point, you need to recognize that they're performing the service here, no different than the planning and zoning.
and Leroy and I already get paid, so it's not like they have to pay
And so does
us too.
And so does Wyatt.
And so does Wyatt.
So
So
we
it's
talked
really
to
just the two town residents that are on the committee.
And I know when I talked to Leroy earlier about the possibility, I think Leroy suggested maybe something per meeting versus per month.
Oh, I would go.
That's
with
always
that.
an option. I just think it's easier if you do 25 per month, 50 per month, but yeah, if you do per meeting, and my concern is people start scheduling meetings just to get paid.
Well, I don't see them being that way.
Because the mayor would schedule it.
Yeah,
Mayor schedule the meetings, yeah.
and right now we're having a lot of meetings because we're getting this under our belt.
I think what's gonna happen is we're gonna have a bunch of meetings. We're gonna get the plan set.
And then
And then, you know,
For a year.
if we have a monthly meeting,
I think
we
so.
might not even have a monthly
Does
meeting.
it set a precedence to start doing it for every committee that we have by doing it? So I agree, they do a lot of work, and I'm not discounting their work at all. I'm just thinking into the future, we're gonna get more and more committees, because that's how, as towns grow, that's what happens. So are we setting a precedent that every committee gets paid now when they're, you know what I mean?
Well, it depends on, I would say it depends on the nature of the committee, as Paul was saying, you know, sometimes some committees are just a little one-time, let's prepare the 4th of July.
Right,
You know, we're not gonna pay them.
but it's still called a committee, and we're
Right.
paying people that are on a committee, so I don't know, that's just.
The question is this this, because I don't remember, I'm kind of like the mayor, I forget stuff, so
Yeah.
when this committee was set up, were there terms set up with it?
Yes,
And it's in an ordinance,
yes.
and these other committees are.
By resolution.
There's a difference.
So could we add that sort where it says committee set up by resolution, or are we just going to say just the capital improvement committee, which was set up by resolution, or you know what I mean, or ordinance?
Uh-huh.
So that it protects us that we don't have to do one for every committee.
I think if we do it just for this one particular committee, and we make a decision each time as to whether they warrant payment.
And if we agree to this, then what we do is we go and do like we did to amend the municipal code where we laid out the amount of money that each committee, like town council gets this, the mayor gets this, the planning commission gets this, it's in the municipal code.
It's
We
not,
would add this, and then those are the ones
And
that
it
pay.
says capital improvement. So
yeah, it's not required by statute or law that we do that, but I think it's a good disclosure to do that.
And it kind of caps that rate I have.
And then those are the committees that get paid.
Because that's it. Yeah, okay. Because then we can amend that whole part and
Yes.
add a committee if we need to.
Yes,
You know, when we called them, they were not told to do anything.
that's true.
And, so they're just doing it for the betterment of the town.
Yes,
And I think we should just stay that way,
Well,
because, you know,
but right now, the only thing I'll say is we're only talking two people.
It's true.
It's
I
and-
realize that.
and Randy.
But again, we're setting, even though we just have it for that committee, we're setting a precedent.
well, how we set the precedent when we pay planning and zoning?
No, because that's,
Planning and zoning is required by state law.
yeah.
They're required,
They're required to have a meeting, but they're
but
not
they're not
required to be
required to
paid.
be paid.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Neither are we required to pay for that.
Right.
But they're not a committee, they're actually a appointed board. They're appointed.
Well, so was this committee. We had to vote on that.
I guess what I know where this is coming from, I guess what we're saying, where I think where she's coming from, I shouldn't speak for her, but she said is, give me in 4 years, when we're all replaced with a new council, you can just disband this council.
They can,
But you can't disband the planning and zoning.
right,
Right.
right. We understand.
Yeah,
It's a matter of,
I guess that's sort of,
is
because we have it, but that one's not going away.
at some point, we cross the threshold of utilizing a volunteer versus versus recognizing their work. And if we don't do the pay, maybe we think of some other way to honor their service.
Yeah.
I guess I would say this though too. You know, we talk about, I'm gonna say two things. I think we talk about people being members of the community. We're talking about, and I know everybody's gonna get approached by the gate over there at Rio de Zion. One of the big concerns with the council was it kind of isolates you and you're no longer part of the community. I think when we get to a point where people don't want to serve and support the community, then you start instigating pay as an enticement to come out and participate. But I mean, people should be given the opportunity to serve without having to have recompense, otherwise it just becomes a job. I even worry about that with us sometimes. Are we doing this because we're trying to help our town, or are we doing it so we get a paycheck?
So instead of a pay, why don't we add a budget item for, service awards for volunteers? And whether that is, and we can work on that between now and later, but it could be, get together banquet at the end of the year, or it could be, you know, our award or recognition where they get a plaque for their service. So it's not paid to them, it's, or stipend, it's just some type of award that we recognize volunteers, not just solely for the CIP, but for other committees. And that's always concerned me, is that communities run on volunteers. And at some point, they get worn out because they volunteer so much.
You look at us, how many of you want to do this last year? I don't.
Yeah, so I'm, you know, I think I raised this for us to have the discussion that we need to do something to recognize these individuals that volunteer, and especially the ones that do it over and over again.
I'd like to see that for everything in the town.
Yeah,
myself.
and I think
Mayor
that's good.
knows, but we attended Bruce Tinsley's funeral, there's like 12 people from the town of Virgin. Whether you agree with the man politically or not, he served this town for a long time.
Yeah,
And there's just nothing at the end. I would be nice for them to walk away from the job with something that says, hey, I served the town and we're grateful for what I did.
and then we need to do.
Recognition dinner or whatever. I'd rather do that than hand them cash.
Yeah, I'm fine with some sort of recognition.
Yeah, so, you know, we can next year create a resolution that defines that program. The question is, you know, do you put the money in now or do you put it in later in this budget?
Yeah, we could put it in later because we're right at the end of our budget time, so.
I know it's a day late and a dollar short, but something else I'd like to consider is we've increased our meeting load this year. We've got CID meetings, which a lot of these questions I'm asking is because I purposely isolated myself from the CID. I feel like I'm involved in 20 other meetings. But CID meetings, we're having board meetings.
Right,
And I
so
know we're paying.
we now have
a
board meetings that we're-
ridiculous amounts of hours. We really ought to start considering. I know before we talk about having a budget for the deputy clerk, assistant deputy clerk, I think we ought to start looking at that, whether it's in this budget or an amendment later.
I
just-
right with that.
Every meeting she has to be to, and now that last night, I'll tell you when we get to that point, but last night, the planning and zoning, they're talking about increasing their work meetings.
what?
They want to start doing more stuff with planning. They start talking about it. Kent and Ron were really pushing having more work meetings. Well, every one of those, that clerk has to attend.
I think that's good because if I'd like to see prior to any decision we make coming up from the planning board, we have the minutes. You know, and so, and I know that would become difficult on Crystal to do that. I'm all right with some help, whether it's a deputy clerk or some other defined help for her in that office. I'm all right with that.
They used to have like Darcy would just do the minutes.
Yeah.
Of the meetings, and that would that, do you want a deputy clerk?
But I'm speaking
Like that?
for you, just.
I mean, I'm throwing you on the spot.
I feel like time, I do, like this has been extra stressful, 3 meetings in a week, it's enough to kill me. But I think what people don't understand is when you guys get to show up to a meeting, I have to set up, I have to do the minutes, I have to do public service, I have to do the programs that I've got.
This year.
And the video. And the upload of the videos,
But then you stay after and do all this other stuff.
right, but I just like to
Right, yeah.
see the work that goes in it, yeah, you guys get to show up and do a
I
meeting for 2 hours and go home.
So
I'm-
that's why I'm
yeah.
asking you,
So-
would that be beneficial to?
Actually, as I was looking into it, the committee should actually appoint somebody to do their minutes and their own stuff, if it's not a clerk's job for a committee.
Yeah.
Committees are to
Just
their
the
own
way you
minutes.
buy plane.
their own, they appoint a secretary of that part of
I
that
don't know
committee.
that, I don't see that in other.
That's
towns.
not planning.
That's not.
Maybe for-
Not planning and zoning committee,
Yes, like
planning
the
and zoning.
capital improvements committee should have.
But I don't know that that is the way it should be done. We can check on it. I'm just saying, I don't know that that's really the way it should be done.
I'm just,
Because I've been to too many meetings at other towns where they have these different, and their clerk is sitting right there. And so are other people that are town staff are sitting there in those meetings.
In the way, I know some communities handle that when the law requires that the clerk be there, they just appoint a temporary clerk.
Mhm.
And then that temporary clerk attends the meetings
Right,
and does
because
it.
Crystal will not be at the town council meeting on Tuesday, and we need somebody to sit in, and so we were going to check with either Monica or Darcy, could somebody who has experience doing this sit in for Crystal while she's gone? So, yes, this is something we need to do.
You know, if we want to meet the minutes from planning and zoning, we need to schedule our meetings at least, not a week after, 2 weeks after, to give them time.
We could, but Crystal does the minutes during the meeting, she's already got the minutes for planning and zoning from last night,
They're done.
they're done.
but we don't have time to review all this stuff before. That's I mean, I do because I'm in the meeting, but all the stuff they talked about last night, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. To then give us time to be able to digest that before we have a meeting, I think is.
I don't believe like a full-time person is necessary, by all means, I mean, I do the job with 3 people already. I don't believe a full-time person is necessary, but sometimes, I think when Darcy put her workload on me, that's where it pushed me.
Right, I understand.
I'm looking at it purely from just thinking of it from a business perspective. When you start paying somebody so much overtime, it would be cheaper to hire a second person. That's what we should be looking at it. It just seems like if planning and zoning's gonna kick up their. So,
So you don't want to burn them, do you?
that's right, mental health.
I would say that it does have to be.
Well, Chris, just so you guys know, Crystal and I have already talked about whether or not to do a deputy clerk and what we want to do. And we plan to figure that out as, you've got a typo on these agendas, by the way. It's on every agenda. Yeah, it's a zip code. I just saw it. Sorry, guys, I get distracted easily. I saw that. I saw that, right. Off of it. The first typo. And the zip code at the top. But Crystal and I have already talked about whether or not to hire an additional clerk and what we would want that additional clerk to do, and we're still working out the details, and we don't want to do it till after we're back in the new building.
Yeah, if we do hire another clerk or an assistant clerk, I like to see our hours at the office expanded
Mhm.
to cover Friday or longer during the day.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that show up after we close at 2, not knowing that we close.
Well, most people know that I'm still here until after 2.
It's been that way for, if there's a car there, somebody comes in.
I get a lot of calls on Fridays from people who are like, I saw my new office to put in my things work for my next project and there's no one there. So I get a lot of.
Even big city like Hurricane doesn't even have a Friday office.
Oh, they're Monday through Thursday?
They are Monday to Friday, but their office on Friday is like 2 hours longer. That's not very long. They close early on Friday.
Wait.
It's a catch-up day for them, I think.
Are half day on Fridays. Because they should,
I wouldn't be that day.
a lot of people are moving to that board.
All right, so what are we going to do about, are there any other questions on the budget for
Yes.
next year? Okay,
I do.
okay,
What's our, you and I talked about updating the muni code.
yes,
We need budget increase to cover that.
well, this is where all the stuff that Crystal and I talked about, what an additional clerk would do, would cover quite a bit of this stuff. Where, because we would need to pay, I talked to Unicode, I had the first training, Crystal and I had the first training earlier this week, we have another one next week. No, after the town council meeting. And, there is a version of Unicode where they will update, we knew that back in the day.
Right.
And we can pay them, or we can pay a person to do it. So part of Crystal and I were, okay, just at the time during this work meeting, during this training session, Crystal and I were like, well, if we're gonna have to hire a person and pay a person to update Unicode, we might as well just pay Unicode to do it. But when they showed what all the restrictions are that we can and cannot do if they take over updating Unicode, I was not sure I liked that.
Like what?
Well, for example, right now, there's a way that we can download and print the entire code. It kind of changes the format a little. Right now, when you're online and you say to print, I hate the way it looks. I hate what it prints. But there is a way that we can print and what. That's what they sent me. Okay, and he talked to me on the phone. Okay, $1,750 for a year to update, keep the code updated for us. And I believe they do it quarterly. They said they don't do it as fast as we could do it, they do it quarterly. I remember you're right, they did say that. Okay. So But
Union code goes, it's not, you don't have that many changes, most of the changes are to
what?
food.
Yeah, Unicode is.
That's Unicode.
So we would have them take it with food.
They already have it.
They already have it.
Yeah.
When we say-
Entire down.
When we say Unicode, that's the software.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the municipal code. The name of the company that does the program online is called Unicode.
Okay, who's doing the municipal code?
They do, as well.
They,
We don't have municipal code like updates,
Oh, but no, it's just in the office.
like that, well, no, I put some of it in there, but the problem is. You've got to go back, see, we paid Unicode to come in and take, and they only did from like 2018 or something. And they put all that code in for us up to the current time. They didn't do the municipal code, they only did Voodoo. The problem is somebody has to update it as new things come in, and I'm of the opinion, having done it for several years now, it would be worth it to have them do it just because if you've got somebody doing it and they screw it up in this town, I mean, I never messed anything up, I triple check everything I put in that it followed exactly. But if something gets messed up in there and somebody says somebody's being nefarious on entering the code, that takes it away from the town and puts it on Unicode. We hand them the ordinance, sign, they invoke it.
Right, and that's what our question then was, is do we need to create a budget item to pay for somebody to update the municipal?
$1,000 a year is not.
but what he's saying is, we would budget for Unicode to update it.
Yeah.
He's saying that, and having been the person who's done the updating, he's like, it would be worth it to pay Unicode to do it.
The risk is high. and
Are
that's-
we gonna have them update the municipal code? Is that what
Every-
you're-
I think that's what
Just every ordinance.
we'd have to pay a chunk, we have to get an estimate to see what they would charge to put our code, our municipal code in there.
It's already, some of it's
I
already.
put some of it in there, but it's literally for me to do it, and it's them too, but you're paying a service. I'm looking at the paper, typing it in, which opens up things for a lot,
Yeah, for errors.
for a
So
lot
I
of
think we
mistakes.
should,
But that's something you'll have to get Unicode on and see
So-
what they would charge.
I think we need to up-to-date the municipal code and how we do it. Doesn't matter, I think it needs to be done, whether we have them do it or we ourselves do it. I mean, that's our policy decision, but I think we need to include something on the budget to pay for it. And get it done.
My suggestion is, let's do some background, see what's gonna cost, get everything put in there, and then do an amendment, because there's no way you can even guess what it's gonna be. I don't know if we paid for the initial cost for Unicode to go in, but.
So you're
this
saying,
one-
So
so you're,
much to keep it up to date is $1,000, $1,100.
Right, what do we pay
So-
initially?
Oh, 1750.
What do we pay them initially to put all that code in and set it up?
$7,000.
It was pretty expensive, and they only.
But it was
had
well worth it.
years. No, it was, I'm not saying that, I think we're taking a shot in the dark, making them.
are you sure?
That's-
Are you sure all our municipal code is not on there?
The municipal code's online,
It
But
may
there,
be
it's
on there,
not.
but there's
it's
no,
not updated.
It's not.
yeah, there's no, every time something, resolutions have been added, any stuff we've changed in the fee schedule, none of
Up
that's.
until when we started doing, when Unicode initially took over, they did enter in the municipal code,
But
but
they
they
did,
never made it live until later.
And they don't put resolutions up, they only put ordinances.
it
No,
has,
but we can put resolutions on it,
Yes.
never have.
you can put cemetery records, you can put public works,
Oh,
it has its
yeah.
own-
Yeah.
Unicode
It's a
is like,
great,
it has all of them.
We can put all sorts of stuff online, and in fact, I was hoping that Bronwyn was going to be here, but she's not. This training session, the next training session coming up is where we have a proposed code that is going to go to be evaluated by everybody, much like these ordinances we're about to look at that you proposed, your proposed changes. The training that Crystal and I are about to have coming up in a couple of weeks. We're learning how to put proposed codes on, and they'll show up and anybody can go online and look at the proposed code.
and you can make adjustments. to it.
And then we can make
It's pretty cool.
adjustments, so Crystal and I are about to do that, so I was hoping this proposed short-term rental code that you and Bronwyn will work on, that you might have something for us that we could put online as our training coming up on the 23rd. So I was hoping Bronwyn would be here, because I said, you guys get me something, so we can use our training.
So the question I have, just from a budgeting standpoint, Because do we put an estimate in there and then adjust it at some point, or do we amend the budget later to have the money?
We can amend
I
it,
think we
let's
should do
see,
it later, because there's too many.
What's,
moving parts.
Leroy, what's your preference, to have it in the budget and then adjust it down if we don't use it, or adjust it up if we need to? Or just add it at a later point when we know that's how to do it?
I think we could just do it later. Because it's an item that needs to be done, but we need to put it in, correct? That's my own opinion.
I just,
And,
and
you know,
we need to determine, do we want, what other books do we want, do we want to have municipal code in there?
Yeah,
Do we want to move Boo and say, hey, we want everything put in from the beginning to end there?
speak of it.
speak of it.
I think, and the reason I asked that question, because I know in some communities, once that budget's set, you have to fight to get other things in. And it sounds like for us,
It's not like,
it's gonna be, yeah, we need it, we'll just amend the budget.
and that's the,
I'm all right with that approach.
That's been the philosophy here, because we're small.
Small, yeah.
And
Small
we-
communities are
Yeah.
some advantages.
And we know that we're growing and there's things we don't
Yeah.
anticipate.
Exactly.
Okay, I do have another budget question when you're ready.
he put this as CARES, and then it's supposed to be ARPA. It's money that we got. Is it,
Yeah,
shouldn't that be under ARPA and not CARES? Because it's
He's-
ARPA funds,
yeah, it's on the front.
so he needs to move it to this. Okay, we'll have to show that. Okay, all right, go ahead, next
My
question.
other question is, I think the mayor, you told me that our resort tax, we're getting 1.1%.
I think it's 1%.
The 1%?
I thought we could get, no, 0.5%. Isn't
It's
our,
1% of transit.
the transient,
No.
no, the resort tax, not the
The
transient room tax,
the
the resort
resort-
tax.
The resort tax was, and when the transient exceeds 66%
Right,
of the permanent census housing, you can levy up to 1.1, or resort communities could add another 0.5. So I wanna know if we're getting all the money that.
no, we are not, there's another 0.5.
That we have got, so.
Yes.
So I'm proposing that because you have to do it by resolution, and then it goes to the election at the next election. Either municipal election or regular election, since we have an election coming up, that we pass in June a resolution for that 0.5%.
On resort tax.
Yes,
But I don't know that that's how we got the resort tax the first time, when the town was able to get the resort tax. I don't believe this was voted on in the election.
but I think for that 0.5, I think you have to vote on it. I just glanced at it quickly, I think that's requirements.
I remember when, Matt Spindler was mayor, we did vote to increase the resort. To install, was it either
Or to get it.
install or to increase it?
It was to get it in the first
To
place.
get it, yeah, it was to get it so that it was install a resort tax.
Yeah, because when I was on the town council with Bruce, we were nowhere near the number where we could even get the resort tax. And now,
I think we should, that's another 0.5% for the community. I think we need to pass a resolution, put out their vote.
Yeah. Well, then,
that gives us more.
I think it's fine.
Okay,
It will, someone, you let the attorney know to draft the resolution.
okay.
And are we all in favor of that then?
Yeah, I don't care. If it's not hitting the community, I don't care if it's tourists.
Yeah, but it's just in the terms.
I don't, I
It's
mean,
hitting the
that's,
church and it's helping us.
that's right.
The
That's-
only concern I would have is we'll also be voting on the EMS tax on that Senate bill. I think it's 395 or 392, whatever the number is. And that's the put for the fire district.
Is that gonna be this election in November, or is it
Yes.
gonna be next year?
Well, it's still, I think it's gonna be this election, but we're still trying to figure that out.
But we need to make sure that we let our public know that that's not a tax on them.
Yeah, it's
Just
on
a
the
tax
tourist.
on the resort.
But I don't mind putting both taxes on at the same time.
Quick question on that resort tax, that the resort tax that we are levying, or is that a resort tax that's being levied that we're collecting back from the state?
And then the state.
The state
State
pays,
levies it and then we're collecting.
And then we.
Yeah, it's part of the sales tax, yeah.
Yeah, the state's already levying it, we're just not getting another 0.5%.
that we
What they're
could,
levying.
Yeah, we're leaving 0.5% on the table.
Yeah, I agree. So it doesn't increase the tax transfer.
Yeah, we should catch every penny that we can.
okay, all right,
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
all right, so we're gonna go with the resolution. When it comes to amending the budget to include somebody who's going to do, we're gonna proceed with we're gonna proceed with maybe signing up with Unicode to do updating the code. Yes, is that what we decided to do?
Yeah.
And then,
Could we, when we go to do that, I'd like to see more,
more info from
well,
Unicode.
just have them do some additional things. Like our municipal code. Get it caught up for us.
I would have to
Just-
show
we have
them
to
what's
do-
not.
I think we should kind of put a smorgasbord of things we'd like them to do before we make an amendment to the budget, not just handling our.
Okay,
I'm talking amendment, I'm sorry, I don't know, you're right, for this, yeah, we should. Pay the $1,500 or $1,700 a year to have them do it person.
okay, all right, but I'll follow up with what you're talking about.
They're good companies. Easy to work. Oh, and so you know, just for a point of information, this collaboration effort that you can do through Unicode,
Uh-huh.
I was very excited when we did that. Because we had council members at the time, and we may have again, where we had council members didn't even have cell phones. So if you can't get on and see that, if you're trying to do the collaboration, like all of us, I think are pretty well online, so it worked well.
You're talking about the training I was just talking about that was coming up that Chris.
When you're talking about, these two could put in their proposed deal and others can look at it, unless everybody is capable of getting on and doing computer stuff.
Oh, I see, okay, because I was gonna say, I have seen the towns where they do have, I can get on their municipal code, and up there, at the very top is proposed ordinances.
Yeah.
And you click on it, and you see all the
It's
proposed
nice,
ordinances that they're addressing.
Just have to at least be able to know how to do the computer.
Okay, so that's on the budget. Item 2, proposed revisions to chapter 16. So Paul, you sent us three proposals. I'm gonna let you talk about them.
What, there were the 3 amendments we adopted. What I did is I took the resolution that we had, and since we already passed the ordinance to change JUB to DRC, I made those changes automatically. So I took each of the ordinances and I automatically changed JUB to DRC. Then I did each of the amendments that we proposed. Amendment 1, then I added amendment 1 and 2, then I added amendment 1, 2, and 3 together on the 3. I think the issue was the third amendment. I don't think we have. I really didn't see any issue with 1 and 2.
So
That is in there.
which one is 1 and which one is 2,
Yeah.
and which one's 1, 2?
Hold on, Bree.
I see that you've got.
So which is-
Okay, the first one that's on the very top, your green one, is 1.
And this is just amendment number 1.
Right, your second one is what, red?
Red,
That one is 1 and 2, and your third one is
1,
orange.
2. Yes, that's
Is
1, 2, and 3.
3.
Okay.
All the things on there. So 1, red is 2, and 3.
Okay, so looking at number 1, which is the amendment to number 1 that you were just telling us?
Number 1 would be, let me go through it here and see where the other ones are. Number 1 is under 1606. A and B. 1606A was and posted upon the Utah Public Notice website.
Okay,
Once it's signed by the Planning and Zoning Commission Chair. And then
1606A
with the green,
is the one with the green,
Yeah, I was sorry, I was looking at page 5, there's some stuff on there as well.
on page 5?
I'm
Oh,
sorry,
that's-
1605AE,
1605, what?
1605AE,
I think
that
Recommend.
is an alteration from the original, because it's.
Oh, that needs to be taken out.
I
I missed that. That needs to be eliminated. That was one I just missed. I was trying to do it quickly this morning, so everybody could understand what was going on. So thanks for catching that.
Sure.
Did you catch that, Crystal?
Sheets.
We need it all the same.
we'll just send her as a one,
Yeah.
in case you miss it, okay.
Thanks for catching that. So, yeah, you're looking at 1606,
A, that's page 6.
1606A at the end, and posted upon the Utah Public Notice website. That, and then B, we had that discussion, my proposal was different than when it came out, but based on our discussion, what we're saying at the time you file, instead of having all the copies, you provide a list of all documents and exhibits in which you want to constitute the record, and then you have to
15 days to get them the document.
you have to provide the documents no later than 15 days prior to the hearing, which was his
Is
suggestion.
that it?
That's it.
Okay, so those were number 1,
That was number one.
okay.
So when we go to number 2, again, we'll have to make that item that,
It's on
page
page 5.
5, yeah.
Page 5.
And then number 2, what that does. Number 2. Number 2 would be just one item, and that would be, let's see, 1616. General CUP review criteria, the last criteria. And I did not give it on. Yeah, no, I did, but it should be, no, I forgot to add that back.
Oh, there's a P?
No, on O, it should be,
Oh, as required by town code or something like
yeah,
that.
as required by ordinance.
So get rid of necessary and say as required by ordinance.
Yeah,
We talked about this,
Yes.
as required by ordinance.
yeah,
Not as necessary, get rid of the word necessary and say
The purpose,
required.
again, you may remember the conversation was the risk of somebody saying, we don't like this group, so we're gonna make the necessary requirement higher than what. So it's by ordinance, then it says if you're a slushy house, you have to have X number of dollars, and it's in code. So it takes the ambiguity out.
Okay,
so those are the 2, and then the red, the orange, I guess is the one that I think was the controversial one, and that's the one with all those same changes I put in here, but obviously, at least I got it on this one, required by ordinance, I got that correctly stated, but then it goes in and it changes everything to make town council the final decision maker. So what happened is the planning board or the planning commission would process CUPs, and instead of making the final decision, they would make a decision that would be coming up to us to make the final decision. And we would not hold another hearing. We would just make the decision based on what was done with the planning board.
I had written some things down from last night's meeting, but fortunately, the chair showed up, so I thought maybe he could, because they voted unanimously to deny that. But I thought that Cameron did a really nice job last night of explaining his concerns. But they denied all 3, I think. Am I correct on that?
all 3 changes?
Yeah.
It's 9 or is
Well,
it?
it wasn't written well for them to be able to see what the changes.
All 3 changes were sent to them all in one.
All in one document.
So it was really hard to distinguish.
Got it.
It wasn't presented to us with 3 separate changes, it was presented to us.
One, got it.
Yeah, and that was the reason we sent it back, was because of this.
Right.
The other 2 didn't need to be sent back, but that one did.
Okay, so what was the thing from planning?
Sure.
So Cameron, what were the reasons why planning commission didn't like that?
So the recommendation was to deny, there was a couple reasons, one of them was, one of the concerns was that that was that should be part of planning and zoning's job. And so, because that should be part of planning and zoning's job, then it shouldn't be taken away. The other reasons were, we do having an elected body that is a legislative body make administrative decisions. It makes the body open to corruption and public. And so the recommendation would be to leave it with a non-elected body for that reason. And the other reason was, the other reason they talked about,
You could tell that it would make the process long for the developer.
Right. The process would then be extended at a minimum of 2 weeks for every decision, which could extend to months if there had to be a redone public hearing because changes wanted to be made. So it could end up being an extended process with multiple public hearings. Based on the changes that were made at either level. So now instead of just one level, there would be 2 levels where those changes could be made.
Okay,
Thank you for reminding me.
so discussion. I think, my personal opinion, corruption and being subject to public clamor could be just as applied to an administrative body as it could to an elected body. I don't see, they could be subject to public clamor just like we could. I don't see any difference which body it is. Everybody's gonna listen to public clamor.
Yeah, but they don't have to be voted in. I mean, they're picked by town council, and that's the reason why they're picked, so they don't have to report to anyone, they do what's best for the town. That's the theory.
That's the theory.
That's the theory, and I think it's worked well here, and I will vote for this without it being with the town council.
Okay.
I mean, not without the town council not being out.
Number 3,
Without
without
zone.
changing without number 3 amendment by Paul. So, my opinion on that is that, the reason I don't like it staying with the planning commission is that I've checked with other towns and I've asked them what they do. And they have an official that makes the decisions. It doesn't even go to planning commission. They have their town planner or their town community developer. The developer goes to them, they review it, they make the decision, and it never goes to planning commission, and it never goes to town council. It all stays right there in that department. And I said, do you have any kind of oversight? I said, how can you allow such a thing with no oversight? And how do you allow that? They said, we have trust in the integrity of our professional developer who's been educated, certified, and trained on how to do this.
You meant plan.
A planner. And I said, we don't have that.
See, my argument is exactly the opposite from that very reason. You have a level 1, and the whole reason this is coming around is because you were trusting one individual, so either nobody trusts me.
Well, I don't, this.
I know you trust. I'm just saying, but either the community doesn't trust me, or they see the problem that there's one individual making the decision. By putting it on a body of unelected officials to make the recommendation, it makes sense to me. I just got done having a conversation with one of the Iversons, Colton Iverson down in Hurricane. Apparently, there's some beef between the engineer who has control over his CO, waiting for a year on a house. There's no reason,
Yeah.
but one individual holds that authority to be able to do that.
Well, I
So
wasn't
my-
saying I like that.
No,
I wasn't saying I like that,
I'm
because
not-
they didn't have any oversight. I was like, are you kidding me?
And I'm not arguing against you or
Isn't
for
that
that,
where-
I'm just saying,
Isn't oversight?
what's that?
Isn't that where the JUD comes in for the? oversight?
Well, no, what this is doing is it's taking the level one combining with the level two,
Right.
originally, that was the original document. Now it's saying level one's being combined with level two, but now the entire thing is a recommending body up to the council to make the decision on an administrative function. That was my argument is, if the council has to make a decision every time somebody wants to get a permit to use the park or rent the town hall, why do we have a clerk? It's the same thing. This is an administrative function, doesn't require a public hearing, doesn't require anything other than that we meet conditions to mitigate stuff that is outside our ordinances, which why you have your DRC get together and meet and make recommendations. It's not something that should have an elected official, in my opinion, making a vote. I think if there's a problem with it, we see that the commission's inept and can't do it, we still have the right to do an appeal on their decision as a town council.
That was gonna be my next question. So we do it, it goes to the Hill Authority.
Correct. If we are the ones issuing it and people object, they go to the.
But if planning and zoning does it, then we get to be the authority.
No,
No, it goes to the third.
whether it's.
Always there's.
It will never come to, yeah, it never comes to the town council. So my concern and Paul's concern is we have no oversight.
Well, the reason I made the proposal is because we, again, we're a small town. And in a small town, what is the most controversial, what goes to the public plan, we're gonna get that at either place. But what affects the people most has been the development. And because we're so small, every development affects everybody in town. And since we're the elected officials, the buck should stop at the elected officials. We should be the ones making that decision that affects so deeply many of the people in the town. The other concern I have is appeals. I understand appeals to the appellate authority, but with those comes potential cost to the town. And so then those appeals go into the appeal authority from the planning commission is that the town is then gonna spend expenditures in that process that may not be. That's the result of the planning commission, not as a result of the town council.
I see what you're saying.
And there's ways that we've taken to insulate that in the fee structure. I'm not sure that those are good philosophical ways and actual legitimate ways. Because any fees need to cover the reasonable expenses of the processing. But at some point, if you have too much of a fee, it becomes a tax. And I'm also concerned that if we start to tie, this would be more of a question for you, but the potential argument I have that I would expect is if you tie fees, attorney fees into it, I can see somebody making an argument that if they're successful at the appellate authority, then they should be paid their fees from the town. Under the American rule with respect to attorney fees. I haven't researched that. I don't know if that's a legitimate argument, but I can see that argument being made, especially by a developer.
I think that's in our ordinances, that's in my,
What's that?
I think we have in our ordinances the requirements for appeal of what they can and can't do regarding collection of fees, but. Can I throw out two other things?
But those are the basis
Sure.
for it coming up to us making the decision versus the planning commission. I mean, another way you can handle that is they'll have the planning commission make the decision and appeal to us. I know he doesn't like that because he wants to go to the appellate authority, and I think the Leroy does too, but if I remember in your comments from past appeals, because it takes up a lot of time. And
It takes up a lot of time for the town, and the appeal authority is a practicing attorney who looks at town codes and
He's actually now the total attorney full time. He's now the secondary when it comes to a bunch of the developments out of this here, because there's some.
I thought our attorney appeal authority is Chico.
It's Bruce Jenkins.
Yeah,
Bruce, I think.
They've now brought him on or they're looking to bring him on as the primary attorney for a good portion of the business that they do, because he has.
He has
He's working.
projects of mine, he's got conflict of interest.
Oh, okay.
He's a good attorney as well. But I wanted to throw out just a couple of thoughts. Number one is that we have been encouraged from the state level down, even the League of Cities and Towns, is to do away with CUPs. In my
Yes.
mind, the CUP is a stopgap for something missing in our ordinances. If we don't have ordinances to protect the community from an unseen aspect of the developer coming in, the CUP is a stopgap for that. But what we really should be doing is when we write a CUP, we should be saying, this is something we need to change in our ordinances and get our ordinances fixed to stop that problem so that the CUP isn't required the next time somebody comes with an identical deal. The second thing is there's this risk with CUPs because of public clamor, which I think a classic example is this story in Moab, and I don't know if you followed that story. The public clamor caused, and it wouldn't matter if it was the commission or the council, they felt pressured and they made unreasonable requirements on the developer who then turned and sued and won. And they paid millions of dollars because they didn't understand that a CUP is simply a stopgap. It's not meant to be something to control a developer and to pinch down. It's a very, to me, it's just a very, the whole CUP process as a whole is a very gray area that has high risk to it. I think we should get them through, make ordinance changes and start setting up our ordinances to where we don't require them except for one-offs.
I have-
And answer to everything.
I have no objection to getting rid of conditional uses because I know, but that's fine. I know that the ULCT has asked towns, get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. They don't like it, they don't like it. And I know a few places have done that.
I don't think you get rid of them completely. but
Not
we should.
But a large number of towns are still in the same position as us, where they're like, I'm not getting rid of those. And so, I have no objection to exploring that. This still, one of these needs to be passed, but, we can go on and explore the other.
CUPs, from a philosophical standpoint, I think CUPs are special use permits. If you look in other jurisdictions, sometimes
That's what they
they call special use permits. It's covering items that you cannot anticipate all the impacts of the development.
Agree.
And therefore, you need to have a conditional use permit to find out what those impacts are and develop reasonable conditions to mitigate those impacts. And that's why I think CUPs are important. I don't think I would get rid of them. We as legislature gets to define which items require CUPs. That's our decision up here based on community input. So I would be against getting rid of CUPs.
Can I clarify what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not wanting to get rid of CUPs. I'm saying we should be thinking about how we can minimize it. So an example, why should we not be able to mitigate all the effects of a gas station? Why does that need to have a CUP? It's pretty straightforward. You know what a gas station is and what it does. And so requiring a CUP on top, we should be creating ordinances to say, if you're a gas station, these are the requirements. We shouldn't say, these are the requirements, but we're also going to require a CUP on everything because we want to cover things. It shouldn't work that way. The CUP should be in replacement, in my mind, in replacement of our old ordinance that used to say illegally, by the way, if a use is wanted that is not in our ordinances, it's automatically prohibited. You can't do that. So it should say, any use that is not listed in BULU is automatically a conditional use permit.
That's,
To my mind, that's the only way you can answer that, but when we know things, like you can't tell Jared with White Bison, that's a multi-use deal we couldn't have foreseen. But a gas station is a gas station.
And I think that was part of the community's decision because we haven't had a gas station here, that they wanted to make sure that it was under.
We have gas stations. We have gas stations here. I'm living in one.
I mean, recently.
Right, but my
Yeah.
point is, that's a foreseeable, but we could have, for 10 years ago, nobody knew what a yurt was. Now, all of a sudden,
Yeah.
yurts are people like, what is that? How do we mitigate?
Well, I look at it kind of like I've been in a community where I spend most of my work life in a community where they spent weeks and a month on adding a street or a traffic signal at a certain intersection. Now, you go to that community and it's automatic. You don't even have, it's not even commission involvement. The time it was commission involvement. So there's some development that goes on as the town grows. When it gets to a certain point, those things become second nature. And we gotta decide, when do we get there? And I think at this point, I don't think the community's ready for a lot of that to be automatic. Now, over time, as you get more development in and more growth, those things become automatic. And that's the decision up here based on community input to say, okay, yeah, we don't need to do for gas station, as long as you have X, Y, and Z.
Okay, so back to that, back to this.
So go back to this, you know, the reason I raised it, because I thought we should make it the decision here. I don't know if I got the 3 votes for that, so the other question is do you do the appeal to here?
Well, let me ask you, do you think that is, if we make it to our planning and zoning, just because I'm listening to your comments, you just said, planning and zoning this, and we're on this step to segue to making them happen on a different level.
What do you mean?
I was talking about that everything has to evolve. And this is our starting to evolve our CUPs.
Yes,
You mean
So
the
we
one
leave it on a
point two?
commission level instead of a council level. We're starting that involvement to where we can start making it a decision that's done by permitting and everything through the office instead of having to.
go to the town council.
Right, it can be done by this committee and things like that. So don't you think this is kind of a segue into that?
A starting point.
Right,
This
yeah,
is the
the starting point if we go through the commission or the commission.
So with
As
that,
long as the town has the ability to appeal.
And that's, I think that's what we're doing right now, is by leaving it with commission, because that's why I was asking about the appeal authority. I think by leaving, because I rethought this, because I've actually had some conversations with some commission members. And it is, I've thought this through a little bit, if we take it over as the body, we are the ones that want to appeal it if we can. So if we leave it in commission's hands, we can appeal it.
Correct.
so the
But
question
if we
is,
take it out of their hands,
We are not. the
it's
ones-
gone. We have to rely on our community members to do it. And if we see a problem for our community members, we should be able to say, well, Grace, we're gonna appeal it.
Right, what are you about to say, Paul?
so why would we, as a town council, appeal it to the appellate
That may
authority
be,
and pay for it?
that may be a rhetorical question, but I can give you a good answer on that. You're talking about something that has a variable nature to it. You said it yourself, to make reasonable conditions. So if it's appealing to us and we uphold it, and then the developer says, you're making an unreasonable condition on me, I'm gonna take you to district. Whereas if we send it to an appeal authority, we're out of it. They're looking at it from an untouched viewpoint, saying, these 2 attorneys say their piece, and then the appeal authority is saying, this is not an unreasonable condition. Then there's no avenue really for them to go. But when we as elected officials, and to say that we're not affected by our biases and by because we live here as well as public clamor, it's not accurate. We know where we stand, and in 2 seconds, I can tell you everybody on this group stands with STRs, right? We all know where we stand on things like that. So when something comes up like that, that we're heavily opinionated on, I think it's good to take it out of the hands and the biases and the emotions and hand it to a third party. To let them look at the facts and say, yes, it's a reasonable condition, or no, that is not an unreasonable condition.
Except for the fact that we've had 2 appeals, and in both cases, the appellants lost. I understand the argument, but it could change.
But did they lose, but did they lose? You're talking about the case of council.
Yeah.
Did they lose because of bias? Or did they lose because it was a fair judgment? That's
It
what
was a legal technicality.
what I'm saying is,
Yeah,
the people, he takes that bias.
And so was the first, they both were legal
Do
technicality.
you know what I'm saying?
Yes, however, hold on, you're leaving, is that what you want to say?
No, we want to.
Cameron already, Bronwyn was already raising her hand already, so let me ask Bronwyn. what she wants. Okay, Bronwyn.
This is a dumb question, I just don't know the answer. Are we limited to a single level of appeal? I mean,
Under
why
this-
can't you have it? Why can't, You
The
guys-
way the code is now written by he, there's one level of.
I understand.
But she's asking, rate an intermediate appeal to county council to the public. You
Yeah.
could do that.
You could,
But then your argument is time and expense.
That's what the developer is trying to move something forward, and now it's appeal after appeal after appeal, to get
Well, I
something
don't
that is
think you
illegal.
do. I don't have an opinion.
Nothing happens in
But it's
35
expensive,
days, 6
and it's
months.
expensive for whoever appeals.
It's expensive on both sides.
developers.
We have to have a lawyer. Yeah, but if you guys can appeal, then that's not expensive. If you guys appeal, what?
No, it's
It's still expensive, yeah, we see our lawyers.
yeah.
You still have to pay the lawyer. You can't, it's not, you know, I see.
No.
Who appeals it, we have to pay our lawyers.
So Bronwyn, your suggestion would work great, especially if there was something that we could correct
At this level,
at this level
without it going to the appeal board.
without it going to the appeal authority. And so it is possible to create that intermediate where somebody could appeal to us and maybe that's a decision. Do we accept that appeal or do we let it go directly? to
So in the
next level?
meantime, before I call on Cameron, in the meantime, we consider doing what Misty is saying, which is choose whether we're gonna go with 1 or 1 and 2. And make that the starting point, and then we can amend as we discover problems as we go.
I think if it's if that's the step we're going, this is the first step.
Okay.
I think that we will.
Okay.
I just want to remind everyone that there have been 2 appeals of conditional use permits. But to insinuate that that was both because of planning and zoning is absolutely wrong. If you remember the first appeal, which was a decision made by planning and zoning, the appellant stated over and over that he was not appealing the decision that was made by planning and zoning. He was appealing the implementation of the requirements that were made by planning and zoning.
And Cameron, if I imply that was an error on your part, that's the reason for the appeals, I stand corrected. I don't think I was.
So I don't want to bring, yeah, that's.
Yeah, you're not correct.
I'm not taking offense. I just want to make sure everyone.
Yes, you're correct. It wasn't based on an error, based on finding.
The second appeal was a decision not made by planning.
Right.
It was a decision made on the zoning.
Don't administrator,
Right.
which they thought should have went to planning.
Which I thought should have.
That's correct.
I wanted to clarify that.
Oh, this solves that one. Yeah, but no, we all understood. We all knew, but I can see why you might have thought we were talking about planning commission. But you're right, this is the first step, and we can make amendments as we go along and discover that maybe we need to change this, we need to change
I
that.
think we revisit
I
the
think green,
second step.
I'm sorry?
I think green and red would pass.
Yes, that's what I was saying. I think we're not gonna have a problem with
Unless-
green.
And let's leave you.
So
We have green and red.
for a motion when the time comes in that meeting, we can say, I move that the green paper.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we done talking about this? We can go on to the next. Okay, all right. So the next thing on the agenda is that was continued from last month. Was to talk about the location of HRZ zone Pocketville Road.
If you don't mind, why don't we continue that?
Because there was a proposal from planning commission that was quite confusing as to, I considered it was confusing.
This passed.
It was passed.
No, it didn't.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
No, we didn't.
Right.
Now, and then in the middle of the
It was,
property, instead
it was
of
the ordinance that Ken and I put together, that, and then I went to council suggested a change, we made that change, went to planning and zoning.
What did the
that
minutes say, Crystal? Give me the minutes, because I swear it didn't have.
because I read this too and I thought the same thing.
You thought this was Jeff?
I thought he passed it.
Well, Paul, we made a motion to keep it the way that it was written, Leroy seconded it.
And
So we
it
kept
passed.
it with, because we all
Everybody
talked about
gave it.
everything in lines.
Yeah.
Right, and then at the end, John just said, fine, just leave it with the.
Well, I was attending by Zoom and my mind drifted. What were you gonna say, Karen?
I apologize, Mayor, I have to leave, but one thing that the planning and zoning did want to bring up was. we hope that you guys would, revisit the definitions, that's been sitting out there for a
Oh,
long
yes,
time.
I thought about that the other day, I realized I didn't put it on
And
here.
then, we also hope that you would, move forward and look at the lighting ordinance. The adoption, mainly because the adoption of those changes would help with, the writing of CUPs to help restrict lighting in a better manner that would be more easily defended if an appeal was made because of, a lighting restriction we put on.
Was that on the, no, that was not on the agenda, this last town council meeting, I've got it right here,
Was not the agenda.
okay.
Did you have any more questions for me? I apologize, I have to run.
What about this preliminary plat? Did you have anything you need to know about this?
The Quail Mesa thing.
Well, Mesa, all the documents were present. The only other item that we discussed, wasn't part of our recommendation was, and it can wait till the final plat, was the, deed restriction to make sure that at least, 22 acres were tied up. That could be split off into the future or developed.
What?
Open space. The open space, because you have to have at least, because there's 22 lots.
Yeah,
You have to have a minimum of 22 acres, either as an individual lot or
Oh.
tied up in open space.
Okay.
So that it could be split off and developed.
Because they can cluster it into one.
Before you go, Karen, I can, Ron, understand that, on the proposed changes to adversely affected party, do we even need that ordinance? Because that was included in this one that Keith drafted, and once you
I,
got this one,
They missed something.
there's something,
He missed something when he wrote it.
we're gonna look at this ordinance and see whether or not it
There
needs
was
to be there.
one section where he missed something. Now, he was gonna rewrite that and he may have included that one section in his rewrite because
He was gonna rewrite it and bring it back. to
he did take notes of where that section was.
But he doesn't, he is not giving us a.
what was missing?
There's one section that needed the word adversely affected party. Replacing some other word.
And we could actually make a motion as a third amendment or whatever, and include that in that ordinance instead of a whole new ordinance.
Okay, well, we'll look at-
6.12 is.
6.12 was missing that
Okay.
that was it.
that was it,
Okay, we could just,
we can add that in.
we can add that at the meeting and make that as a motion of that.
Okay,
And that way we don't have to do a whole separate ordinance on
Yeah.
it, if you're all right with it.
okay, so we're gonna add, so you can go ahead and go then.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna add section,
Cameron, thanks for coming.
we're gonna add 6.12.
Six one one.
No, 6.
Chapter
6.12.
6.12 to into, green paper clip, orange paper clip, and red paper clip.
Well, perfect.
Into the three clips.
They all needed put in there so that whenever we vote on,
It's in there.
Would it be easier if I just do two ordinances? One that has proposed amendment 1 and 2 and the 6.1.2. And then the other one, which then we will vote down. Based on what I'm hearing right now, so do green and orange clips one, along with the change to 6.12, and then leave the red out. And have a separate one for red. Would that make it easier? So we're just voting on one, and all
Right,
in different amendments.
yeah, you just combine the green and the red.
no, red is 1, 2.
Orange is 1 and 2.
No,
Green is
orange,
Orange.
orange is 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, red's already 1 and 2.
Right.
So all I have to do is add,
Green is 1.
So just add 2 red after each.
just add,
And then.
just add 6.12 to this one, I'll send it to you, and then we just only have to deal with. the
Yeah, he's
order.
saying combine this one into the red and green. make Christmas and combine them, and then leave Halloween by itself.
Well, red already has green in it.
Red already has.
Yeah,
right,
So just give her the red one.
No, we want
No,
the
get
red.
rid-
We want the red.
We're getting rid of the green one, keeping the red one, adding the 6.12, and then you're doing the orange one with keeping the 6 and doing the 6.11 that one.
Yes,
It's gonna be two.
That's what we said.
So we'll only have two ordinances to
to
do.
look at, yes.
That
And
can-
when you send me that,
Two old.
I will get it done sometime
No,
tomorrow.
they're different. This one is town council.
Or I
This
can
is
probably
planning.
get it done tonight when I get home,
That's the difference.
What?
so I can have it to you
He said
tonight.
two of the ordinances are the same, I said, no.
No.
it's twenty.
I said, you're not two.
well, I think that's been posted 24 hours, so we're,
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
yeah, because you got till Thursday, so.
No,
No,
Tuesday.
our meeting.
I have
Tuesday.
Monday.
She has it posted Monday.
You'll have it tomorrow. So
Okay,
I'll do it tonight.
We just do that, fill in the whereas for me and do, since you have,
Whereas I can. Got it.
then we have to work on those.
uh,
I'll work on some of those this weekend.
I'll put both of those ordinance on SharePoint with Word, so you can add the whereas.
and Jean, you said you put.
I'll work on some of the whereases, but their main, Pete needs to work on some too.
Well, didn't Heath say that he was gonna do the whereas?
He said he already did it.
He did?
Yeah, he already did it, he just didn't have them on the copy.
Oh, yeah.
we received.
And then supposedly he gave a copy, but I don't know who to.
Didn't give a copy to me.
Didn't give it to
Forgot
me.
me.
He may have hand carried it and handed it to somebody, but.
They thought he did. Okay.
And you already told we gotta have a closed meeting for sure.
I have not told him that, but, oh, yeah, did the agenda you gave me talk about a closed meeting at the
And
end?
then you told me what.
Yeah, I know we're gonna have a closed meeting.
You're gonna have it before this.
That's a good
No.
word.
It'll
I can't think
be,
of it.
Is it still again?
it should be at the,
Yeah, shoot.
yeah, we should do it at the end. We can ask Keith what he wanted, but
Easier to do at the end of the Zoom meeting.
Yes,
Well, and it's more considerate to people that come.
more conservative.
yes,
People that
so it'll be
Litigation.
pending litigation, and then there was the negotiation of contracts. We're gonna talk about Water Conservancy District, East Water, the water tank. and
Water conservancy.
There's several on the table right now, contract.
Yeah.
negotiation,
Yeah.
talk about.
That's all I need to know.
So, okay, so the last thing on the agenda is this preliminary plat for Quail Mesa. So. When we were talking about this, when this thing came up, it was on the agenda for us to vote on last month, which was the STR limitation on size and number of people. You, Leroy, had suggested that you and I both had a conflict of interest because this would apply to Zion's Edge. And I said, no, we don't have a conflict of interest because this was actually something that was gonna go to multiple subdivisions, not just that one subdivision. This thing that applies to Quail Mesa, in my opinion, now we're in a situation where both you and I have a conflict of interest. This affects both of us, and it's only this one subdivision, and I am really,
Well, Mesa is the one on top.
yes, I really think you and I both have to declare a conflict of interest.
You may wanna-
I didn't think it on the first.
I'll declare a possible conflict of interest, but I'm gonna vote. I'm still gonna vote.
And I don't think, unless you have a personal bias on it, the fact that you live next to it does not create a legal.
I don't have a bias against it as long as it's done properly, and it meets all the city codes.
Okay, I wanted
That's the
us to
way I
have
feel.
this discussion, I want us to have this
And,
discussion,
and I understand why you want to have it,
okay,
and I appreciate that.
okay.
Thank you.
But I think it's important too to know that state of Utah says you have to declare the conflict of interest.
And I know it doesn't mean you have to
But
step
that doesn't
aside,
mean you can't.
because with Zion's Edge, I stepped aside. Yeah, I had a conflict of interest and I felt that I could not be objective.
That in the year.
And that's why, and Keith and I talked about it, I said I can't be objective about.
I think I'd be.
Maybe that's what you have to ask yourself.
Yeah. And this one doesn't think that.
And,
This is the
and
thing.
another thing is, I'm gonna have to declare that the people that live in my development are putting pressure on me to go a certain way.
Are they?
Well, I'm gonna have to declare that I'm gonna approach about it.
Well, yeah, that'd be excellent communication.
So he'll have to declare that.
Yeah, he just has to declare that part.
Yeah,
Communications.
the board of directors would want to meet with me Monday again.
Yeah, and what the
So
sub,
the HOA.
what the substance.
Are you sure it's about this?
Well, I know it's,
Because they're meeting with, they
Who
met,
is it? John?
it's Lauren, John and Rob, but they're meeting with Jean Monday at 1.
Yeah,
but
they
it's about
called,
the
they
gate.
called me a message, I have no idea.
I think they talked about a gate.
Listen to it.
I don't think so. I don't think it's about this.
they've already talked to you about that.
But at the meeting that for Monday, I'm betting it's about the gate because they've already talked to me and they called Jean.
Nobody listened to my message, and if you tell,
They, you know, even if they talk about the gate, I'm gonna have, and that, when that comes up, it'll have to be X 402.
And that's fine. That's fine.
I mean, if we're all talking to them, I mean, since they're all.
We've all.
But that's why I told you, and that's what I said in the
I
last.
think we
meeting,
can take this
everyone
forward
was
to-
talked to.
I think we can take this one. I finally sat down and did the research. Partake communication does not apply the same way that it does in a legal setting. What we should be saying is, have I had any unethical communications? Does not apply to municipal code.
I disagree.
Same thing. Well, he said it doesn't apply.
Well-
He said if you guys are using that, that's fine, but I'm not gonna come in and say, well, I had a conversation with somebody, here's all we talked about. I'm gonna say, I've had no ethical community, no unethical community.
Well, see, here's what I disagree with in other communities, and I don't know what it is in Utah, but in a lot of other states, it's a violation of due process. If you have ex parte communications and they're not disclosed, on administrative matters, not legislative, yes. That there are no legal ex parte communications would apply to legislative. But when you're applying an administrative issue, both the developer and the citizens have a right to know whether you had a conversation with either the developer or other citizens. So if you look at it from the developer standpoint, he's gonna wanna know that yes, there was conversations and it was with the neighbors. Otherwise, his due process rights will be violated.
That's fine. I'm not gonna do that. I communicate with people on administrative issues every day because of my positions. And the state of Utah recognizes that I can pull both of those sections without an issue.
But this is more of a constitutional issue and then a potential liability on the town if you get the right attorney that knows how to process that. And the easiest way to remedy that is to disclose it.
Yeah, it's better to expose anything.
You save us potential of constitutional violation.
I'll simply say, when I'm asked that question, it's always gonna be from this point on, I've had no unethical communications.
And depending on the situation, when my response is, having had a conversation with the party or the neighbor about the project.
And
I
I'm
want to
afraid
say
that-
every one of them that's talked to me has never said, I'm trying to sway your vote. They've all said, I would like to explain my position to you.
Yeah, exactly right.
They've
I
been
mean,
really wonderful about it.
how can you, my concern with doing this is it gets to the point where elected officials are now afraid to talk to the public. Our job is to interface with the public and they should be able to reach out to us at any point in time. But there's no way that I could sit down here with a list and go, okay, on this date, I spoke to 16 people about these. I'm not gonna do that. That's ridiculous. And if we get sued, then we'll face it at that time. Clearly, that's not a problem in other communities in the state of Utah because nobody else is doing this. Go to any town meeting around here, you're not gonna hear them say the words ex parte. They'll say, you have a conflict of interest, and that's it.
I've seen other communities.
Okay, well, I'd have to see, but I'm just.
Sense that a town council and a planning and zoning commission, you're already talking to the development. That's what happens.
But I think the
There's a
public has a
difference
right to know.
I agree, there's a difference, and right.
The legislator and that you did, or that you did.
If somebody wants to approach me and say, hey, Gene, you didn't talk to that, door, I'll be happy to sit down to you every.
That's-
But I'm not gonna do it in this big.
That's why we on those appeals, we declared whether we had a conflict or a ex parte communication, because there was a due process right for the developer. When, to know if the board making that decision on the appeal, had any conversations with somebody else about it, because everything had to be at that.
I understand where you're coming from, I know what it means, but in talking with our attorneys, it's not applied the way you guys are.
All right, so we're not gonna go.
But going back,
Let's get back to the subject.
are we only dealing with the preliminary plat, or are we also dealing the,
Just preliminary.
No,
so there's not a short-term rental?
yes,
The overlay was not, I don't believe. that's-
according to Crystal, she went back and looked at all of the minutes.
So they, planning and zoning approved the minutes for the overlay.
No,
No,
They did.
they did not.
It just did the,
Preliminary plat,
That's
that was my understanding.
in December, you guys approved it.
no, we said that's the final plat, that's why, when it came to council. No, they put up, said about,
so it's,
so we need to listen to whatever, when. You had the discussion at town council with Paul, and everybody did that amendment. That's the only time we've ever talked about.
so Crystal, find those minutes. You sat here and told me that you reviewed the minutes, so find it and read it.
So basically, I want to, if we are, we need to change, it needs to be approval of preliminary plan, and we also have to do approval for the short-term rental overlay.
I added to the agenda for Tuesday's meeting, approval of short-term rental overlay zone change, because Crystal insisted that in the minutes of the meetings previous,
They did it before.
we already had a public hearing, we already did all this stuff. And that you made the motion that we put off approving the zone change until we do the preliminary.
It was not the same plat. Not the same plat, we can't.
It's not the same.
Yes, let me ask,
It's not the same.
the chair and my.
So if it's not the same plat though, how can we approve? We can't, put an overlay on a plat we haven't reviewed till now.
This is an overlay zone change. not an overlay zone.
Right, but
But if we continue the, from the one meeting, we need to, we need to
finish.
we need to continue it again.
Pulling the minutes.
Crystal's finding the minutes and is gonna read what the minutes say.
I'll take the subject, would you like?
Yes, please.
The minute-
Where's this wastewater system?
What?
Where's their sewer on this?
I know, that's
I
my.
heard twice about where's, so right here is showing the wastewater, where is this? I
That-
have to see my uneducated eyes.
Okay.
I would like to know if this is one, but if the downhill slope right
No.
here.
No, downhill slope is here. Here's my house. Here we are, this is my house. You come here, and this is where the road turns to go up the hill. What, this is where Linda and Bill have their septic system right there. So this is because you can't do anything up here.
Right,
And so this is, they're putting the system in the same place where Bill and Linda have their septic system.
I need a filter.
Okay,
That's fine.
let me just point out one
I'm
more
just telling you
thing.
that's where that
I
is.
want to just point out one more thing on this. Professionals have looked at this. This water treatment system will be better than anything that Linda ever had. It comes out with irrigation water in your reach. That's, I mean, it's that good.
Has the state
So
looked
where,
at
the-
this?
yes,
And
it's
where the
Colvin,
commission-
there's no way you could have even gotten past it.
Right, that's the question I'm asking, I
Okay,
told you I
yes.
have educated eye.
Just so you know, I'm not.
But let's see the proof.
I am,
I want to see the proof that the state has approved.
It's in the
They've given us
documents
stuff.
that they should have given, planning and zoning should have forwarded.
those don't have all that stuff.
So
So
No, they said that.
that's been done. That's been done. We should have had cameras. in there.
Level 3 has been done.
That's correct. That is what that is.
Okay, that's fine for now, but there's the other issue.
I'll bring that up. You're talking about body septic.
They don't have.
I'll bring it up. You don't have to bring that up. If that's what that is that what you're gonna bring up?
You don't have to have that for the preliminary, but they do have to have that for the final plat.
Yeah,
There's different issues.
there's two different, those are two different. Well, I asked about the stupid.
Zoning.
That's a different thing, I'm not asking about.
She's not asking.
I understand that.
Yes,
Just like that. I'm just asking where it's at.
What?
Zoning, Sean made a motion, this, when he did the zone change.
This is what,
Well,
month?
made the overlay.
Month, what, Crystal, please, what year and month was this? Don't just tell me here's what the minutes say, what year?
December 12th, 2022.
Okay, listen, December 12th, 2022 at planning and zoning.
Is when the motion.
Sean Adam made a motion to approve the zone change STR overlay.
Hold on, wait a minute. We'll start again.
Sean Adam made the motion to approve the zone change STR overlay with, he talked about some kind of 4 points that needed to be done in the ordinance. To be done with the final plat section, 60.02.C.3 and 6.02C, 8B, and widening second.
So that's not till the final.
That was planning, but that's
But
planning.
that's for the short-term rental.
Wow.
We can call the two guys and arrange for you to go over. Yeah, they had a thing where all the people in Rio de Janeiro got to go up and look this weekend.
Oh, I wish I
I
did.
didn't go, I didn't go, but it was just.
I went there once when I looked at them, it was just because we were driving on that, you know, when we were here.
Yeah, but this
Remember that.
was the thing where they took up this just for the people of Rio and go up and for them to go to state.
That's a good thing.
And they did that on Saturday and I decided that I was not gonna go. And so I just felt too conflicted.
Right,
I think those guys.
I agree with you that anytime.
But
Good for yourself to know that.
You know, it's easy to remember to say that you put a condition on a preliminary plat that says you bring back,
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
planning and zoning for short-term rental, and that's the one trying to get a short-term rental.
Yeah.
Okay, town council February 21st.
2023,
Because they got postponed in January to the February meeting. Leroy Thompson made a motion to table this. in
what's the
April
item,
with
what's the item that's being tabled?
the STR overlay.
Okay,
Leroy Thompson made a motion to table this to the April with the preliminary plat approval. Jean Garati seconded.
But then did you make an amendment?
He didn't make an amendment.
well, you guys said Paul made some motion.
I thought we.
I thought it was, I want you to call it, oh, sorry, it was Leroy. Leroy made the motion to table this to April with the preliminary plat. Because they did not have the preliminary plat, so you guys wanted,
So it wasn't held in April because they weren't ready, so now here they are ready.
so now they have the preliminary plat. They already approved the short-term rental
No,
overlay.
no, they
had-
No. It doesn't sound like they approved it.
That's why it came to. Got approved by you guys, but it got tabled by us until this was done. That's what the original meeting was. It has been approved by you guys, but my question, and I think the mayor's brought this up before, and this is something that needs to be considered. Do we want to postpone the STR overlay zone to accompany the final plat recording? Otherwise, if these guys back out of this and you've given them that overlay, then what? I think
Then
that
we-
was discussed before, that we
Yes.
would wait until later on. I don't care about that. I just want to make sure you get my ducks in a row, because planning and zoning, I know Cameron's been very thorough on making sure they have the requirements. I want to make sure we're not jerking these guys around. I don't care if we're thorough. We should be looking for avenues to say, oh, no, we have it. If we've done it, we've done it.
Okay, here's my concern, which is what Bronwyn was trying to bring out. And that has to do with the septic system.
Okay, so now, but this is my point of last night. These are professionals who put their lives on the line and represent the town to give us this information. It's not our job to start challenging them on their studies. If the state's approved it, and these guys have approved it, why are we getting involved saying, oh, we don't like your setup? That gets really sketchy. If they've met the requirement of the ordinances and it's clean, the state's approved it, why are we getting in there saying we don't like it? That gets really dangerous.
So I'm going to continue with what I was gonna say.
Hey, sorry, I feel like we keep jerking people around instead of moving the agenda forward. If we don't like what they're
It's not
doing,
jerking around. to
meeting the
ask questions.
ordinances.
It is not jerking around to ask questions.
No, it's not, but
There's no-
No decisions are being made. We are asking
Yeah.
questions here.
I'm just stating my case by.
Okay, you stated it. Okay, I am aware of what you're saying. Here's what I'm concerned about. And this has to do with the body politic. It doesn't have to do with this.
Go ahead.
Okay, listen,
I'm showing you the areas of the.
okay,
Not official.
the question, the issue is, have they gotten approval, even though they've gotten approval from the state? When you have a single landowner, Southwest Utah Public Health Department signs off.
That's correct.
When there are multiple owners, it's not free.
Well,
Right.
actually can be the body policy. All that's required by the state, they can determine it. All that's required by the state is that there is a body politic. If they can't get the sewer district to do it, and they can't get the town to do it, they can get a state representative to do it. There's options for a body politic.
From what Mike told me at Ash Creek, is that when there are multiple owners of a piece of property, they are the body politic.
They are if we're annexed into them, but we are not.
That's not what he told me.
I don't care what he told you, I'm telling you, that's why he wants to annex. so that-
I understand he wants to annex in, but my understanding of being annexed in is because then they would become the body politic on everything.
That's right. He doesn't want to have multiple body politics, but that's his opinion because we're not annexed. The town can do it, the state can do it, we can do whoever. I personally would love to see the sewer district be our body politic. Because
I'm talking about this project.
right, I know what you're saying. And he's talking about all of them. He's saying, I've got my Justin Christensen, I've got this group, I've got this group without annexation.
And he's told them all no. So the other guys said,
Until you're in it, because we're not even part of Virgin's ways.
what?
Do those have multiple?
As far as I know, just Christian has one.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to them. No, I know what you're saying. What I'm saying though is they don't want to take and be body politic for any developments in Virgin
Right.
until they're annexed by.
Because Publicis said that.
Right. So whether it's one or multiple owners, they're not gonna do any approvals for them to be body politic any further. We'll either have to join the sewer district or we get body politic at the state level. Or they do to have the town, do it. We want to hire somebody that's a sewer back.
So does that, why don't we ask them? Go back.
Because it's too early, you don't get that till the end.
Okay. So you guys decide what you're gonna do. Never mind, what I had to say.
So
Just
back to the next Tuesday. Are we making a decision on the short-term rental overlay?
Has he applied for that?
He applied back in December or November of last year.
We tabled
Tabled.
it, so we'll have to make a
We'll have to
decision.
make a decision.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, please.
Let's get Keith involved in this because this is, if it's something that they legally have a right to get at the preliminary by our ordinances, because our ordinance says preliminary in one place, it says final in another. He said if they declare it, let's ask Keith if that's something that can even be done.
He has already said at two different, with Observation Estates and Justin Christensen, that we can give them short-term rental overlay at the preliminary plat, but they do, it does not become effective
Okay.
until the final plat.
Gotcha.
But
And that's
then
the same minutes right now with Justin.
But then there's-
Rob and I talked about
Then there's the other issue. This is a different preliminary plat than what your
Well,
approval.
that's another issue.
That's that's a different preliminary.
So do they need to go back and get to the short-term overlay to get approval from the planning commission with respect to this preliminary plat? I think that's the answer would be yes, but
But if you guys said with preliminary plat approval, so
It was conditional, I don't know, I mean, I just don't know.
yeah, the planning board approved it with respect to a different preliminary plat.
Correct.
So has that preliminary plat changed substantially since the other one?
It's changed, the point that, has anything changed enough that if it isn't effective until final plat, has it changed enough to, I don't know.
I'd like to
It's
start-
never going to be effective until the final plat. The way our code is, it will never be effective until final plat. The
Yeah,
question is, what Paul is asking
no, it
is with the change in the preliminary plat, does it have to be reevaluated?
Ask the attorney.
That's
So there's any more new laws?
Yeah, there's more lots.
There's
They
more
changed
laws,
it
so
back to
maybe-
the old plan, when it we approved had less lots, they put it back to an old one and more. lots.
And they put apparently two-story houses where they didn't have two-story.
Does that even matter though, what the plat looks like? It's a red zone that says, yes, you can have it, or no, you cannot. It's not based on that plat. It just has to have,
The stuff
they
with
did less than 5 lots, now there's 22.
This one.
regardless, my point is, they just have to have a preliminary plat to be granted that right, is my understanding. Maybe this is another question for you. I just think we're getting.
Just the ordinance we need to fix, so we never have to.
I know this thing about preliminary plat and making it conditional until you get the final plat is something that.
We should.
We have to make it up in our ordinance, instead we could say such a thing.
Short-term rental overlay request.
I really request we let Heath weigh it, because I don't want to give it on something that
I
we should
should
be
do the
giving.
agenda, you guys want it on.
Yes,
She may not get the answer from
You can
Keith
take it
before Tuesday.
We may not get an answer from him until we're sitting here at the town council.
So I'm just concerned, and then you can take it off. I don't know what else you guys want to
I
do.
think that's.
We put it on, and then if he says no, then we just,
Take it off.
however, I'm still going to tell you that I am concerned that I'm still concerned about body politic thing.
If he doesn't have it, he doesn't get his final. That's it.
I understand.
So I'm with you. I am really with you, believe it or not, I am. He'll either have a body politic or he does not get his final. It doesn't matter how much, who does it to me. If he doesn't have it, he doesn't get it. That's
Okay,
the
so
law.
far with what they have submitted nothing with anyone who's going to be the body politic. And I'm just not sure if these guys understand they have to get a body.
You know, it's.
So
I talk-
I'm not talking about Jeff Lee.
oh,
I'm talking about Robert and Reed who are buying the property.
They were here last night and they specifically were asked by the commission, you guys understand you're gonna be held to this accountability. All of those owners were here last night. And they said, yes, whatever Jeff sets up and you guys agree to with the town, we are bound by that.
So we're gonna get a petition from some of the developers to annex into the Ash Creek district.
That's something the town does, but I.
That's
think
the
we
town
should-
does that, that's.
But you know, but I mean, developers and people can ask the council.
Yeah,
they
they
go.
have to do it, yeah.
I'm sure they would, because it's gonna hold up all
I assume that's coming at some point if they can't get a body politic.
But that happening with Virgin's not if it's a.
But, yeah,
It does, yeah.
yeah, we have
It's not
two different
fast, so-
politics here now. I think Ferber has a different person than Mun's property will have. And the gas station. has.
The gas station and Munn both have Ash Creek.
Yeah, I
As
know,
their
but
body politic.
Ferber has someone else.
I don't know
But-
what Herbert.
But even Jared, I mean, they're out over their, front of their boat because we're not part of that. It's a problem. We need to fix it. And Mayor and I were talking earlier. I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to make you, but I'm very animated, but I'm not arguing with you, but I am. It's my way. And people think I'm angry. I'm not. It's just, that's my way. What I was gonna say is when we first did the wastewater study, they were asking us to annex and we told them no, not until we had our wastewater study. Now that we've got that, we gave our word that we would start exploring, but I think it's something we should explore personally. Maybe we should look at it. It's not saying that you're bound by all these things. It's saying some specific things about when sewer comes. that you're required to do certain things, like commercial has to hook up to it, which we already require. There's a grandfather on, or a sunset on the town, like 10 years or something, you have to be hooked on the sewer when it's available. So there are some downsides, they're gonna cheese people off. but-
Yeah, well, that would be the existing homeowners within 10 years, yeah, that's gonna be.
We're kind of in a pinch though. Your river's gonna get polluted, even if you don't grow, our river is gonna get polluted if we don't do something.
It's already kind of.
Yeah, but the expense of existing homeowners, they're connected to.
Smart homeowners that actually understand they have the land will be knocking at the door. I know I would, I'd pay the money to go under the road and come back. Because that's where, if they run it with the trail, it'll be on the other side of it. That's what I'm to me, because it frees up my property. All my property's tied up in leach lines and replacement. things.
You know, a lot of communities, and that's problem with Thatch Creek, a lot of communities will say, you hook up when your septic fails. And
Yeah, that was part of their deal.
they have to, went down to 10 years, eliminate the 10 year and the septic fails. I'm all right with that, requiring that, but to require a homeowner to do within 10 years. You know,
As I recall, he had three situations. One was sewage failure, or septic failure.
That makes-
One was when the new people buy the home.
Yeah, and that makes
Third
sense.
was a sunset, but he didn't set a date, he just said 10 or 15 or whatever.
Yeah, and that would be the one provision that
We can negotiate.
that would affect my vote one way or another for a existing homeowner. If you got a way to eliminate that from the request, then I'd be more in favor of it because it's not costing existing homeowners money.
Right.
I'd be in favor if it was said that if there's that, they own it or they sold it property.
You remember those?
Yeah, if they sold the property, that would make sense too, if you've got a new owner, I feel.
But remember too, it's also based on sewer actually being available, so like. The first, yeah, actually might not even make it to the legal area of the mayor's house for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then you add another 10 years on that, people might be knocking the door today, so who knows, it's a ways out, either way.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And to get up where you are.
Depends on the pressure of the environment.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not worried about me, I'm worried about, quite frankly, I'm worried about the citizens that can afford the.
That's okay.
I won't be here 20 years from now, so I don't care. But you know, when you're already 80, you know, you're not gonna make it. The likelihood of being here 20 years is slim.
You're not 80, stop lying.
I am.
You're not.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Actually, you're young baby.
Should we ask Leroy his opinion, current ages of the potential candidate? for the president of the United States, being in their 80s?
They're both in their 80s, so.
They'll be in their 80s when they're serving. We'll save that for another discussion offline.
All right, are we done? As soon as we're done, I'm gonna tell you, once we're off here, I'll tell you guys what I was gonna say, what I've been waiting to say, but I'll wait till we're offline. So are we done?
I'm doing it offline.
Somebody make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
What you
I'll tell you individually.
individually, okay.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
They already seconded.
We did.
Sorry, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.